Salvation is something of the heart. If Jesus didn't have it in his heart, whatever was there, people could recognize. He wasn't one of those plastic ministers preaching what somebody else told him. And I have rejected all religion outright. Now, I'm Jewish. I'm born Jewish. No one ever converted me to Christianity. If I may use it, a simple term, although it's not quite accurate, I converted myself. I'm not a Christian like everybody else, because they're not Christians. Christians should love me. I love them, but they don't love me back. I like what they say, but I don't like what they are. Jesus said that, believe what the Pharisees say, but don't be like them. See, it's the same with the religion. You go to the religion people, and you give them money, and you give them $100, $1,000 to buy a place in heaven. And you get high as a kite on Sunday morning, and you really think you found Jesus, and you haven't. You just found the preacher. See, and all you got is religiosity, an illusion. And you're less and not more, and then you're mad. When you're mad, you're guilty. Now see how we're talking about a different level? Now you're guilty. When you're guilty, what do you need? Religion. Virtue does not flow to the blood. No. See, that's just, it's not like animals. Virtue is virtue because of inclination of the soul. See, and some have it, some don't. Some choose to be the way they were born, but then they become bullies and cowards. But you also might become a bully and a coward, but only because of a programming. But we all come into the world, we are born into sin. We talk about, Bible does not accurately, perfectly translate what is meant. See, most Christians simply will verse in chapters and they recite it like they were an actor on the stage. That's not Christianity. Christianity is something very, very deep. And it's something you don't learn from a preacher. Right. And I don't want to give you to that misery. Right. I'm trying to help save you from that misery, because you already have it. Yes. You have it when you were born. You have it when you were a baby. Anybody who wants to control you will make you first emotional. And when you become emotional, your consciousness, you lose your center, the ground of your being. You come out of this inner space where you know what's right. You're born with it. You're born with a sense. Don't let anybody confuse you that right and wrong is something other people teach you. It can end up that way if you're not careful, so that you become a mechanical robot. That you have other people's values and you make decisions according to those implanted values. Very rigid and mechanical. It won't stand you in very good stead in life. I'm saying there's a very delicate spirit of understanding things which is within you in a wordless way. And that dimension is a kind of knowledge, and it's a kind of knowledge that isn't with words, it isn't thinking. And you have to get into this world where there's no thinking. When you're into this world where there's no thinking, you can see yourself thinking. That's maybe kind of strange to some people, but some people have never known this other world. They can't see themselves thinking. It's sort of peace apart from God, not peace with Him. Now the purpose of meditation is not to become hypnotically involved in some technique which gives control over to the person who gives you the mantra. The person who gives you the mantra you believe in, and you end up by following his techniques in a hypnotic state connected to the mind of your guru. So in effect, you are hypnotized and you do not know you're hypnotized. We'll have a discussion one evening on what hypnosis is all about too. But you're hypnotized and you're in a state of lesser consciousness, not greater consciousness, but less consciousness often seems like more consciousness. But man is first of nature, then a spirit, and then
there's a certain period of time, some of us take longer than others to get this message, but there's a certain point in life where you do think that riches and girlfriends and possessions and a new car and, you know, getting good feelings from smoking a joint, whatever it is, all those different things that you do that you seem like is essential to your life. If you didn't have it, you'd die. And what's life all about? What is there to live for, you say, in this state? But there's a certain point in life where you begin to realize there's something wrong. And it's the relationship with the wrong that causes the conflict with what's right in you. That's when you reach the threshold of that development. When you reach the threshold of that development, developing that way, then you start to come in conflict with the spirit that created you to know Him. So at that point, the more you want, the more dissatisfied you get with sex and music. And you start with conflict with the things you own. And then you try not owning them, but then that doesn't do it either. You try giving it away, throwing it away. See, you vacillate between, and then you realize then that the material, that the movement, your movement of your soul toward the world is the movement in the wrong direction. Now at that point you become spiritual, start to search for something you know not what. Seek and you shall find. It's really yearn. Seeking is the wrong word, it's yearning. The minute you start to recognize that's not it, and you say, well, what is it? The minute you ask that question, that's not it. It's not out there, I know that. You're given to know that. The minute you say, what is it? What am I here for? The minute you do that, you'll know God. The very type of person that was in the garden, the very type of snake-like serpentine quality that gave them this nature, this puffed up nature, puffed up with knowledge, that misled them and brought them down to being less of a human being, thinking it's going to be more of a human being. And so these people go back like drug addicts. They go back to those same types, and they elect them as experts, and they put them on pedestals, and they are icons, and they're idols, and these idols lead them and massage into them what they want to hear, and they keep buying it and learning and believing they're wonderful when they're not wonderful, and God loves them when God doesn't love them. It's not our God that loves them, it's another God that loves them the way they are. It's an evil God. And so these people go that way, and these people are getting some kind of salvation, but it isn't a salvation it isn't a true salvation. It is a salvation from salvation. The ego is kept being preserved. And therefore Jesus said, who preserves his life shall lose it. Whoever shall preserve his ego, animal life, and breath, that's what the translation actually means. In Greek, there are two words for life. One is susheo and zoe. Zoe, we get our word zoo from. Zoe. Whoever shall preserve his zoe life. The English only has one word for life, so it doesn't make sense when you only use that one word. But you put it back to the Greek, it makes sense. Who shall preserve his ego, animal life and breath shall lose the suche, life and breath. Who shall lay down his ego, animal life and breath shall pick up the spiritual suche, life and breath. And he wanted to know how to get into the kingdom of heaven, and he couldn't do it because he walked away because he couldn't give his money away. He was very rich. Because it isn't that people should give their money away. Jesus is not telling rich men to give their money away. He knew that he was supported. His idea of his self-worth was really because when you have a lot of money, people think highly of you. And you think highly of yourself. And you give money. And people think you're a good, generous person. And this contributes to a sense of self-worth. And you cannot, every person who lives, who has a self-worth dependent on how people think of them, not what God thinks of them, cannot enter the kingdom. It's not the money. It could be anything. You could be a mathematician and a good doctor, and everybody thinks you're wonderful, but you're not a good person. You can actually get a sense of worth compensate for a lack of worth in your work.
Every day, you go out and you got to face this mean world.
It's mean.
And it's just not simple to face it. You know, you want to speak up.
Well, let me ask you, is it the way I show you, is it simpler to simply not hate the world and face it, or is it easier to hate the world and not face it? I mean, you've already tried hating the world and not facing it, and licking but you can't, joining what you can't lick. You found that easy or found that hard? That's what you're crying, isn't it? About? Is it because that's
I find it hard not to just hate, because
Say that again.
I have a lot of hate in me, and I don't want it.
Don't you see
But
that's
how do I get him out?
well?
I try to meditate and listen to you, and I know that I put you on a pedestal, and I know that's wrong.
I see. That's the reason why. Look, I appreciate your honesty. Do you see that you are what I've been talking about this evening?
Yes.
And that instead of being caught up with, if I may use a term, yourself, your God self, your Christ self, instead of standing back and becoming identified, enveloped in His Spirit, which is a very mystical thing. I don't think I could write what that means down on paper. The best I can do is sort of give it some kind of high-sounding name. But I tell you that if your soul is pure, now when I'm saying it's pure in the sense that you really want to find the purpose for which you were created, you've heard me say this before, and within that to serve it, to be the vehicle of what you were created for, and not to give up the sense of I am. To give up the sense of the selfish preservation of your ego, your own selfish existence. When you're ready to do that, only then are you ready to experience that other side, that other half of you that comes into play, which is called enlightenment, fulfillment, understanding, love. Only then are those forces released in you to neutralize the horrible effects of the world around you. You see, because you stand between two worlds, and the I-ness, and if you know what I mean by the I-ness, the me, the selfish me, that yes, that hungry, selfish, greedy, self-seeking, self-fulfilling ego. The I separated from the I am, as if it was an I am itself. You know what I mean? See, that's that separation, the I separated from the I am, which is a union with a God, trying to be its own God, above everything, beneath nothing, becomes subject to everything. It becomes vulnerable to all of the suggestions and all of the influences of life. And slowly but surely our mind gets opened up, and you get taken over, and you get eaten away. You're hypnotized and confused. You become confused. You don't know where you're coming or going. You think you're doing right and it's wrong. And it'll always be that way until you have that extra edge. You've got to wake up to the fact that your children, most of your children have been demoralized, degraded. You cannot conquer a noble people, say the communists. You cannot conquer them. You cannot conquer a sovereign people. Impossible. Those people, noble people, will elect a noble government. The government by the people, for the people, all that stuff, works only if the people are noble. And they raise the kind of person who is distinguished among them, like a Ronald Reagan, to help govern their affairs. And Ronald Reagan didn't think a lot of himself. He was just a very modest gentleman. He knew exactly what he was doing, and he had his facts straight, and he had the courage to call the communist country evil empire, to define the enemy. Where's the House of Un-American Activities and McCarthy kind of thing? Where is it? We used to be absolutely very careful not to be infiltrated by the communists. Now our Senate is full of them. There's more of them than there is of our kind. Where are the people standing up? No, the people don't stand up because half the country has been demoralized. The other half of the country is in la-la land. You know, they have nice cars, they still feel comfortable. I mean, you know, they get, at least they're on welfare. Well, they're on, you know, unemployment. They have a little hope. They, you know, get more money than they would get paid for because there's no jobs. At least they get more money. After a while, they become addicted to that money, and there's less and less of us. See, so the less and less of those who work, our incentive to work goes away because we work because we want to work for ourselves. We want to be independent, and if we want to be generous, we want to be generous. We don't want to have somebody share our money. We don't want anybody to take our savings and give it to somebody else in the form of, you know, duplicating our dollars, counterfeit. You know, you have write a counterfeit dollar and give it to your friends. And if it's a good dollar, they buy what you could have bought. When you want to spend your dollar, it isn't there. Or there's less of it. So we have a little better economy because somebody's spending our money. When you come to get your money, it's not going to work. Up there, they're traitors. I'm not a political person, but I am an American, and most of you ain't. You're just born here. I applied to be an American because I saw this country for what it was. I also saw it falling apart. Why it took me 35 years, almost 40 years to become an American citizen, because I saw it falling and I saw nobody wanted to listen. I did the best I could, but then I looked around, there's nowhere else to go. Other countries are falling apart. They're already being taken over. I can see it. I know the game that's being played. She's a little bit more sympathetic to
she understands what's going on.
High school is a very deadly place because, you know, they're the places where you learn to be emotionally involved in all the wrong things. And this is where they teach you corruption and violation of all the emotional, that takes away your identity. You know why the kids can't say niet?
Yeah.
They can't say niet. You know why? It's because they need the support of all the things, all their friends that have violated them. They've got their identity from that. So how can you say no to God? Whoever gives you your identity, whoever violates you, puts a little bit of them in you, and the little bit of them in you cries out to them always and clings. And in order for you to, the little bit of them in you to exist, which you think is you, it isn't. But it's the only you got. So now it's survival. And you can't say no to those demands of your friends who are not really your friends, and they make you perform. They make you a slave because you need it needs approval. The real person doesn't need approval. I need your money, but I don't need your approval. See what I mean? In other words, my character is not at stake. If you don't send me money, then I can't do the program, but I'm still a whole person. I'm still real me. I'm not going to be bummed out. I'm not going to, you know, I can still lose everything and I'm still me.